This is the Roller Coaster Podcast, and I'm your host, Lucy Q. Life is a wild ride. It has twists and turns. It's scary, exciting, and downright fun. So throw your head back, arms in the air, and come along with me for the ride.
Life is like a roller coaster, baby, baby. I wanna ride.
Episode 200 of the roller coaster will soon be here, and this is your chance to be part of the fun. I'm going to be recording this episode with coaches and listeners just like you. If you want to be part of the fun, head over to nectargrowth.com. Sign up for free and RSVP for the November 18th event. All of the details will be under the events tab. I can't wait to see you there. What are you waiting for? Come join us. You know you're worth it.
Ride.
I think that the word resilient has become a tagline, or maybe an ironic punchline for the last 18 months. Now, I don't want to use the C word because I think everyone's tired of hearing it. But as far as we've come, it doesn't look like we're out of the woods yet. And parents are tired and overwhelmed with school, work, and life all colliding at home. Joining me today is Kiran Gaind, a certified parent, life, and leadership coach for 10 years, a certified teacher for over 20 years, and an organizational change agent and redesigner for 18 years. Most importantly, she's been a mom since 2009. And she's here to share how to integrate the resilient success system at home and at work. Hi, Kiran.
Hi, Lucy. It's so great to be here with you today. So
Thank you for joining me. This is a very important topic because I've spoken to a lot of mothers that are just, they're done.
And so many mothers, I think, are feeling that way. We've all felt that way to one degree or another. We've experienced different aspects of approaching burnout. And very sadly, I think on a bigger picture scale, a lot of the advances we've made as women over the decades since, more feminist movement kind of things started, and we've gone backwards in terms of the advances we've made in the workplace because of how, let's just call it like it is, how broken many of our systems that are here to support women, the issues around childcare, issues around just having equality in the spaces that we need it, having a recognition of what it truly means to integrate work and family, and the kinds of systems and policies that would need to be in place to make that really empowering to women. We see very clearly now how those things have really failed women, so I'm not going to sugarcoat that. I think that the pandemic has really exposed a lot of that, and our healthcare systems, our education systems, just, those are big picture, big topics. But I think women, because of all of that, mothers, they're done because they're not supported enough through crisis and just through day-to-day life. They don't have the supports they need. But what I'm here to talk about is that I think then what that does is it puts on us and our families, our organizations, our communities and schools. I mean, it does require us really to be resilient and to have certain systems, structures, habits, practices in place for ourselves that we really take ownership over, and we decide, this has to be front and center. My self-care, my the things I need for my physical well-being. What do I need for my mental well-being? What do I need for my social well-being? I have to make those decisions, and I've got to put them in place. The big rocks, I've got to put those big rocks into my life and actually make them real, and I think that is possible. And that is what I work with people on. And to first help gain the clarity about what and then why, and then how, and once you do that, I think it's just committing to yourself and what you really need is a huge part of it.
I'm thinking back to, when I was working and I had two kids that I was taking care of. Yes, my job took a back seat to my husband simply because he makes more money than I do.
Yeah.
So, by default, I became the primary caregiver simply because he was working more than me and he made more money than I did. And it wasn't anything about, man or woman. It was just a fact. And I can remember, even, before we had any of this, it's not easy. It's not easy balancing a home and kids. You get so caught up in just trying to get through the days to even, I mean, I didn't even know what self-care was until, my kids were teenagers. The concept was never taught or explained to me in any way. So even the basics of what women need in their own homes or should put in place for themselves, they weren't there before. So how do we even begin to explore those topics in an environment where it's just all blown to hell?
Yeah. Well, and I know this also is going to depend on the age of kids to a certain degree, but I often start at I think the most fundamental thing that we can deal with self-care has to do with sleep. And I think creating a culture of sleep in a family is a key thing, because like I think before I took that on, and I took that on well before the pandemic in my family. My kids are 12 and 9 now. As soon as they were able to sleep, but then a hurdle that I felt I had to overcome, like in my family situation, is that like my husband, who's a tech engineer at one of the at Google, pretty demanding job, um he would burn the midnight oil a lot, and even he has changed, so like we've worked together as a couple to create a foundation of healthy habits around sleep, and that meant it wasn't going to just be me who had to make that shift, it was also my partner, and us deciding as a team that we had to put this as a priority, which was hard. Those were can be hard conversations, but what we've found is that we're happier, we're more in sync. Because we prioritize sleep, it's a little easier to sell that to our kids when it comes up as a challenge for them, that we're modeling it, and that we're going to bed earlier, we're getting up earlier, we have a little more time in the morning before the kids are awake to invest in certain things that help us get our days started well, whether that's eating healthy, getting a little walk in with the dogs, doing a little exercise, reading a little bit, setting up our day for success. So much of that really hinges on that choice to put sleep as like a core foundational thing. It's not sexy, it's not interesting, it's like, but I think that in the community we live in, with this very hard driving culture around achievement and success, we're right in the heart of Silicon Valley, we live in Palo Alto, Stanford University is in the backyard. It's like there is this like this pursuit of achievement and prestige that is to an extreme here, to the point where teenagers, they're striving towards these college admissions and things, they're staying up till god knows when, just trying to get homework done, trying to fit it all in, and burning out and having increased rates of depression, anxiety, and this was well before COVID. um we have had a suicide clusters here. It's intense, and I don't think we're alone in that in this community. I think it's all driven from just the way our system is, and the way the gaps are and the inequalities and the striving to achieve. But so I do see individuals and families and parents making this choice that, even amidst that, we're going to prioritize this thing, this basic thing called sleep. and we're going to make sure we're getting enough of it. We're going to, no matter what, like just put that at the top, because we can be better parents. We're happier. We could be more grounded, more functioning in our day-to-day life if we put something like that first. So, you know, I prioritize things like that as a place to start. And then I would say my next block would be looking at the physical needs. Are you hydrated? Are you exercising? Are you eating right? Because our immunity, we live now in this time where you can't count on the fact that everyone's taking precautions, to protect their immunity. And so then you have to do that for yourself even more so than you would otherwise in flu season or whatever. It's become something that we have to choose for ourselves. I think we do, so things like that. And then I think there's our emotional well-being, and are we, whatever our needs are there, are we talking to a friend at least a couple times a week? Are we using tools like meditation or journaling to process all the anxiety that we're probably feeling during the times we're living in, or just to take care of even hearing ourselves, what we feel, what are we thinking. Something like journaling, I think, can be extremely important for that. um, and then, just can we talk openly and honestly, like in a show like this, we get to really talk about what is really happening. And maybe in our workplace we don't always feel we have room for that, or with certain people in certain situations, but I think it is important that we figure out where we have the kind of emotional safety to speak honestly and openly about what we're really going through.
And I think there's something, you touched on something very important in there. And I think as a culture, we've gotten conditioned to being busy. And being busy means that we're not taking the time to stop and feel and
Mm.
actually process the emotions that we're going through. And it's something that, you know, again, I've only learned recently how to actually stop being busy so that I can take the time to actually feel what I'm feeling and work through those emotions, because I've done it the other way where you keep going, you keep going, you keep pushing, and then all of a sudden you hit the wall. You either hit the wall, you have a crisis, something happens, and you realize it ain't working anymore.
I'm so glad that you've had that shift in your life. I think that that's a real gift that you can give to yourself, and I think it really does contribute to your resilience, because if we can't take care of ourselves, especially as women, especially as mothers, who else is going to do that? It's fortunately, we're all, that's the way things are, fortunately or unfortunately. I'm not going to judge it, but it's just the way it is that, we tend to be taking care of everyone, and I think that, and others want to take care of us, I'm sure, but they're busy too, so it is, I think, just great modeling, because once we start doing that and we realize that and we slow down, and the pandemic kind of forced us all to slow down, um and we show up for ourselves and we start creating different rhythms and different habits and practices, the people in our lives will notice, what even if we're not going around proselytizing doing this, but just by how much more grounded we are, and our energy shifts, and we're more present, for them. We're more present to just the simple things in our daily life. People notice that, our spouses will notice that, our children will notice that, and most importantly, we notice that because we just have more energy. And I do think that as the world turns and history continues down in the chapters ahead, that those things, having energy, having presence in the midst of so much uncertainty, is really important. those are like the fuel that we can draw upon to keep moving forward, even when it feels pretty, just not great out there in the world on so many levels. It doesn't feel good. Most of the people I'm talking to these days, whether it's people I work with or parents or whoever, it just feels so like, the world is not doing so great right now. And I think that means that we're all dealing with fear, we're dealing with anxiety, we're dealing with hurt and sadness and uncertainty. And so I don't know about you, but I've always really sort of prided myself on being, a very positive person, a very energetic person, a very, a certain type of person. And I think that the challenge as mothers, we often have to be that person for our families. We're anchors. We're the
Yeah,
ones
we're the ones that prop everyone else up.
we do.
And
And
the problem with that is that you're left feeling like, well, who the hell's going to prop me up?
oh, exactly. And we kind of, I believe what I teach as a coach is that it's our practices that prop us up. It is the practices that we are devoted to. So whether that's the journaling practice, the exercise practice, the meditation, or the walking in nature, or just sitting still and feeling and reflecting and being in stillness, you know I'm not going to tell you which practice to commit to or prop yourself up. I have lots I can offer, but I do think we have to have them, and those are going to be our solid ground. The practices that we do daily are the solid ground when there's no solid ground, and when we're not feeling like being so positive, and we're not feeling, we're just burning out. It's like we got to regroup and reorganize our existence around these practices, and put them first. It is not selfish. There is no, nobody's going to win an award for martyring ourselves to anyone, right?
Yeah.
And we know that, and I know that, whatever, I know how hard that can feel. Oh, am I going to be selfish? Am I, and it's not about being selfish. It's about sustaining yourself, and you are being a better parent, and you are going to be there for the long run when you sustain yourself. So it's not even really an option. It's kind of a necessity, I would
It
say.
is. It is definitely. Now, did you create the resilient success system because of COVID, or did you already have
No,
it?
it was already started. I kind of renamed it, the four pillars, and I can explain that if that's helpful, just kind of briefly. But it's what I found as a coach when I'm working with people, with parents, that it's helpful, especially like in a community like mine, where I think a lot of what I'm doing as a coach is helping people make shifts in their thinking and mindset. And once you make those shifts in your mindset, it's like, oh, okay, so I can do things in a different way. I don't have to just kind of follow like here, I think there can be a lot of pressure and competition where I live to parent a certain way to a certain outcome. It's all about this kind of elite thing of elite college admissions, and where we live, it's difficult place. It's a bit extreme, I think, compared to a lot of places. It's sort of this, everything's perfect. Your health, your how you look has to be perfect. Your house has to be perfect. Your career, your pedigree, all of that. It's like
The guy
very,
would fit in.
yeah. It's I don't really fit in here.
As I said before we hit record, I am who I am. I'm not going to change that.
Yeah.
And it's like, and
Nor should you. Why should we be doing this to ourselves? I think that, and when I say all this, of course there are plenty of people who don't, you find your people and you find your way, but it's I think the reason why it's important to share that is because even in the midst of a place like that, where there's that culture and that drive and that perfectionism, finding your truth in that and your authenticity, that's what I care about. Is because, and imagine how hard it is for a kid growing up in this environment, because that's all they know, right? It's like the water they swim in. So then when they get to be in this high school, and maybe a kid starts to feel depressed or starts to feel anxious, or then what? Then the parents, I help the parents to realize that just putting so much pressure on kids isn't going to help them emerge always with this success. It's going to, for many kids, really choke off kind of who they need to be and where their life needs to go, because they don't fit that mold. So my resilient success system was born of that kind of work, to help people see that sometimes you gotta let go of the way you think everyone else is doing everything, and social media amplifies this as well. And in place of that, you got to focus on the right things. So my 4 pillars spell the word care. And when after we've made the shift away from what I call conventional care, where the 4 letters of care stand for compliance, the C is compliance to an external ideal of success. The A is anxiety by having a future orientation. The R is reactivity to control behavior and outcomes. And the E is entitlement, that striving to be the best at all costs. And I help people shift to this new mindset, which I call true care, where the letters stand for new things. So now, instead of the C standing for compliance, it stands for connection. And I teach people about brain science and child development and how crucial connection is to a healthy child and a healthy relationship. The A shifts from anxiety to authenticity, where I'm helping parents, like you just said, I'm not about all that. I'm going to be who I am. That's what we want. We want you to be true to who you are, true to your core values, and to use those core values to really drive the train of your parenting. And I help people develop the ability to do that and the structures that they need. And then the R, we're moving away from reactivity to responsiveness, which is about, when we're responsive instead of reactive, we understand when a behavior happens, like from a kid, some kind of off track behavior, whether it's a tantrum or a rebellion or whatever, that underlying that there is a need that that child has. And that when we're really attuned and connected, and we're being authentic with ourselves, we're creating a culture of authenticity, we can attune and meet that need and respond to it, instead of just trying to kind of clamp it down, control it, make it go away. That rarely works, because when we do that, it's going to keep popping up. And so we've got to meet the need, and by doing that, it kind of dissolves away that need for the off track interaction. And then for the E, we're shifting from entitlement, that being the best at all costs. Every person around me is my competition. I'm kind of climbing over people to succeed, which, believe it or not, is a real thing. It may sound a little crazy, but it really is, I think, baked into a lot of the things like college. That striving around college admissions is pretty intense in the United States. We're shifting that more towards empathy, and the E that we want is empathy. And I think with everything that we've learned this year, all the movements for change, all the issues around inequality and racism, that are we really raising our families to have some kind of consciousness around empathy for others, and what can we be doing to instill that? And so those 4 pillars: connection, authenticity, responsiveness, and empathy. And I've developed that to just help parents have kind of a framework and a guiding set of pillars as they parent at all the different ages and stages.
So, how are some easy ways that parents that are listening now can take your 4 pillars of care
Mm-hmm.
and blend it into their family lives today?
My dogs, they help me explain. They're kind of contributing at the moment, but
That's okay.
okay. I would say that like I said before, they're kind of these lower hanging fruit, or just easier reach kind of entry points. I would say that an entry point for this true care is looking at how much we are connecting one-on-one with each of our children.
dogs have come to join the conversation.
I'm going to go on the back porch and hopefully they're going to be in the other room and we can have a little separate conversation. But when people come to the door, they get excited. But
But that's the
I think
reality. But hang
that
on.
is life,
That is the reality of where we're living right now. And that's
yeah,
why I said to you when we got going, this is the roller coaster. This is real life. We
yeah.
are all dealing with, the other day my husband was on a call and we have this rather large ginger tabby female cat who's cranky as all hell. And she'll just decide that she doesn't want the other one to come near her. And he was on a conference call and it sounded like somebody was skinning the cat alive. And it's like, what do you do?
What do you, it's,
This
I
is
know, like that
life.
kid who comes in on the guy who's on like CNN, and it's like,
Oh, that was
that was so
that's
great.
it. That
Yeah.
was obviously pre-C word, but that, and I think that's the part that we keep trying to gloss over in our lives, is we are trying to make it seem like we're these perfectly poised individuals sitting behind our cameras. Meanwhile, sure, you can see me from the waist up. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm wearing track pants. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with your dogs barking in the background. There's nothing wrong with my cats losing their shit because they're mad at each other. And this is life. And I think the more often we can be real and share those things that happen, I think we lower the anxiety levels for everybody.
That I would say I definitely agree with. And I think that, to that point, when you asked me about, true care and how to do it, how to really engage that as the easiest thing, I think that when parents are feeling whatever they're feeling, anxiety is a big one, right? It is up there. It is through the roof these days. Um, I think, first of all, are we being honest with ourselves that we're feeling that? Are we creating regular spaces for each of the most important people in our lives? So, whether that's a partner, our children, where there is enough room and space and sort of acceptance of feeling where it's being expressed. I love the practice of, this kind of special one-on-one time and really spending that time with each child, doing something they want to do, and during these times we're living in, it might have used to be that they want to, go play basketball, go on a bike ride, do something. And maybe now sometimes they just need, like, they just want to lie next to us and have us give them a massage or do something that's nurturing, but maybe during that time, if we are really practicing the pillars, the connection, the authenticity, the responsiveness, the empathy, that they're going to feel safe, to talk to us and share what's really going on for them, and I think that that can be one of the like the easiest things to start. This is just to kind of slow down, get off that, that train to nowhere or whatever that we're racing on with all the million activities, and like it was so, life was so overscheduled for families, at least where I live. And I've heard that in a lot of places, like, you're just spending so much time in the car, you're signing up for all these classes, and you're running around. And so the quality of time that you spend a lot of times with kids is just this very, it's busy, like you were saying, just so busy that there's just very little room for all the authenticity and the connection. And parents do it not because they necessarily enjoy it, but they are like, this is going to help my kid be successful, this is my job, this is what I have to do. It's a lot of pressure. So I think that the forced slowing down that we've experienced during this time, I can't tell you the number of parents who have appreciated it, because now they're eating meals as a family. They are not signed up for 10 activities. They are barely signed up for anything. They are staying home. The kid has a trampoline in the backyard and they're jumping around on that thing. The kid has way more downtime. The kid might be reading more books or playing an instrument or just chilling out. And the family feels more like a family. And I think that as much as we can also drive each other nuts when we're all piled in the house, but that simple thing of like just sitting down for a meal together, curling up on the couch and watching a Netflix, making some pizzas, do it. Sure, no, nobody's getting into Harvard, whatever. But it's like we're just enjoying each other's company. And isn't that what it's really about? So I would say just all of that has happened this year, let's not be in a rush to change that back to how it used to be. Let's try to let all that harried frenzy kind of stuff, maybe we just don't need that. What can we move beyond that as a norm, permanently? And I think if families can reflect on that and see what makes it hard to accept that change, what's the resistance about, sit with that, reflect on that. Is it a fear? Is it a they're not going to make it, they're not going to be successful, but all parents have those fears. But let's just be honest about that, and instead of needing all of that stuff, what if just that connection that you feel is enough? Because I'll tell you, from a child development perspective and neuroscience perspective, it is enough for kids to have that with you. That is what
That's
they
all kids
really
want.
need. That's all they need and
Sure,
want.
they may want to be, they may want to play hockey, they may want to do dance, but they don't want
And
to be
that's great if they have one or
they
a
don't want to be
couple things.
doing it like
Yeah.
24/7. And I think overall, I think the biggest, and this is gonna may sound odd, I think the biggest self-care that women and mothers can do is to stop using the F word. And it's not the fire truck word, it's the fine.
I'm fine.
Yes, because, and guilty as charged.
Oh yeah.
Guilty as charged. I used to use that word more times than I would use a fire truck word, and I would use a fire truck word a lot. Like, and I think by saying fine, you're immediately disengaging yourself from feeling. And
Well, and it's a very societal expectation as women. We're just always supposed to be, we're supposed to be fine. You know what I'm saying? There's so much
yeah, well,
pressure on us to
we
be
need to start
fine.
saying, no, I'm a hot mess.
Yeah. And
I'm done. I'm spent. I can't do this anymore.
yeah.
That's, as women, that's what we need to give each other. And I can
And
go from being
yeah.
in the course of a day, literally, it's a roller coaster. You can be up, something can happen, you can go down, then you can laugh and you go back up again.
And I'm grateful to people like, well, for you for saying that, and also for people like Simone Biles, Naomi Osaka, like some of these public figures who I think have modeled that to us. And I'm not saying they're mothers, but they are women who, they've had the entire world watching them saying, you have to be a certain way, you have to be not just fine, you have to be these perfect achieving people all day long. And they're saying, I can't do this anymore. And I think at every level of, whether it's public figures, whether it's just us in our homes and the way that things are and the lack of supports that we have and that pressure to put on the perfect smiley face, it is important now that we see that actually there's another way, and you can be more honest, you can be more authentic, and you have to know when enough is enough. And I think it can feel like there's repercussions. I mean, I think women feel that way. That's why they don't do it. They don't want the penalty, the social penalty or the judgments that other people have. But at the end of the day, it isn't those judgments and those opinions that are going to create more resilience for you. It's never going to come from that. It's always going to come from you knowing what's enough for you and you having the courage to draw the line, around yourself, draw the boundary, draw that protection of yourself. So I'm a huge fan of that, and I try my best to practice these things myself. And I feel fortunate for certain people in my life where I can just say, like with my husband or with a few very close friends, like I just feel so I'm done. I need a break. I'm not doing I'm today is not a good day. I'm not having a good day. And then what? And then it's like, well, what do you need? And being able to articulate, I just need a little time. I need a little space. I need to regroup. Knowing the practices that will help you um, move through and process those feelings so that you can get to your center again and reconnect to your center. Um, and I think it's important for all of us to have like the 5 minute version of that, the 5 hour version of that, the 5 day version of that, and to know when to use which one of those. Because sometimes you got 5 minutes, girl, you don't got 5 days to go off on some retreat or something. So that's not going to happen. So then what? If you got 5 minutes, how are you going to get back to your center? And I think you can do it. I think, you got to breathe. I think you've got to get in your body, get out of your head, get out of that to-do list thing, and then just you got to be able to let stuff go and just get a quick little jolt of space in your head. um so things like that, I'm a fan of those 5 minute revivers, because in the midst of all of it, sometimes that is all we're going to get is 5 minutes. But that can go a long way. Like you were saying, you start your day with, you're going to sit in stillness for 5 minutes. Just nobody's bugging me right now. I don't have to be here for anyone. I'm juicing up my battery for a few minutes before the day starts. That sometimes is enough. And sometimes it's not. So I just think we have to know ourselves. We have to know what our life can offer to us, and then just use the practices to do the best we can to take care of ourselves. Yeah.
Did you have any a story maybe of how you've helped somebody and how they've benefited from implementing these 4 pillars into their lives?
Yeah, I have a very dear client I've been working with for several months. And one of the things she's overcoming in her life is just, I get this a lot as a parent coach, is that her family of origin, her parents, her life and upbringing wasn't really what she's trying to create for her family. There is a lot of stuff she experienced, kind of traumatic stuff growing up, that the ancestral kind of issues. And she's really doing a great job of not being that for her kids. But I think in her own sense of self, sometimes it can feel really painful. There's pain there because it always gets triggered up from when we're in our parenting moments with our kids. And maybe we remember the trigger is like, we remember our parent yelled at us or did something to us that, even worse than that, just something traumatic that didn't serve us. So I think in that healing process, and when I coach people who've had those kind of histories, and I've had some of that in my own journey, that the tools can really help us to give ourselves the love that we need as we're healing, to see that there's nothing wrong with us, that we are whole, perfect, and complete right now. We are not damaged goods. We are not only defined by the traumas that we experienced. And that when we use the practices of the breath and mindfulness and being in our bodies and being able to use our breathing, being able to use our kindness directing that back to ourselves, the kind of kindness and love we give to our children every day, being able to really offer that to our own hearts, that is where a lot of the work really happens. I think the transformation comes from that willingness to be loving to ourselves and to see our own worth and to really, really celebrate our own value as people.
So true. Now, Kiran, if somebody's listening and they want to reach out and learn more about your success systems, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Oh, thanks for asking, Lucy. My website is up and available, which is raisingresilience.com. So that is one place. And then my direct email is Kiran, Kiran, at raisingresilience.com. If you are interested in speaking with me further about a situation that you would like some free coaching around, interested in potentially looking at some of the programs and just talking further, that would be the best way to get in touch with me. And then we will get something scheduled. And I would love to meet anyone who's looking for that kind of support. So thank you.
Kiran, thank you so much for joining me today. Oh, and before I forget, if you're looking at connecting with Kiran, make sure you check out the show notes. I'm going to have all of the links in there. And Kiran, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Lucy. That was a great conversation.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Roller Coaster Podcast. Want to chat or share your ideas about today's show? Pop me an email at hello@therollercoasterpodcast.com. Don't forget to connect with me on Facebook and Instagram at The Roller Coaster Podcast. Our theme song, Roller Coaster, was performed by The Lucky Setback. Audio editing by the one and only Jeff Quigley of Quigley Creative.